U.S. Attorney Patrick Fizgerald's press conference announcing the federal criminal complaint charges against Illinois Governor Rod Blagojevich at the Federal Derksen Building in downtown Chicago on December 9, 2008.
That he attempted to sell the Senate seat. The Senate seat he had the sole right under Illinois to appoint to replace President-elect Obama. Let me take you back 8 weeks ago to set the allegations in context. Back 8 weeks ago, we had the following environment. There was a known investigation of the Blagojevich administration that had been going on for years involving allegations of pay-to-play conduct and corruption. There had been a recent trial of an associate of Governor Blagojevich in which allegations were aired where people testified that Governor Blagojevich was involved in corrupt conduct. And there was an Ethics in Government Act that was pending that would go into effect January 1 of 2009 that would bar certain contributions from people doing business with the state of Illinois. You might have thought in that environment that pay-to-play would slow down. The opposite happened. It sped up. Governor Blagojevich and others were working feverishly to get as much money from contractors, shaking them down pay-to-play before the end of the year. I will give you one example. A month or so ago, a $1.8 billion tollway project was announced. And while that tollway project was being announced, Governor Blagojevich was privately seeking to have a person benefiting from that contract raise $100,000 in contributions. And privately, the government said, I could have made a larger announcement but wanted to see how they would perform by the end of the year. If they don't perform, bleep them. That's a quote. And the word bleep is not the word he used. After being aware that actually the pay-to-play scheme had taken up greater steam and greater urgency back 8 weeks ago, after careful review, the decision was made that more extraordinary means of investigation needed to be used. After that point, a bug was placed in the campaign offices of Governor Blagojevich. That tap was placed in his home telephone. And that tap and that bug bore out what those allegations were. I'll give you two examples set forth in the 76-page complaint. One involves Children's Memorial Hospital, a hospital that obviously takes care of children. At one point, the governor awarded funding, reimbursement funding to that hospital to the tune of $8 million. But he also indicated privately that what he wanted to get was a $50,000 personal contribution from the chief executive officer of that hospital. In the ensuing weeks, that contribution never came. And Governor Blagojevich was intercepted on the telephone checking to see whether or not he could pull back the funding for Children's Memorial Hospital. A second example is legislation that is pending concerning horse racing. There's a bill that I believe sits on the governor's desk that would take money from casino revenues and divert a percentage of it to horse racing tracks. While this was pending, the interceptions show that the governor was told that one person who he was seeking to have raised $100,000 also was working with a person who was seeking that money to have a bill pending. And the governor was told that the person who wanted that bill, from whom they wanted money, was told the following, that he needed to get his contribution in. And the quote was, look, there is a concern that there is going to be some skittishness if your bill gets signed because of the timeliness of the commitment, close quote. Then the person told the contributor the money, quote, got to be in now, close quote. And when the governor was told this part of the conversation, his response was, good. Shortly thereafter, the person who was trying to get the contribution from the person who had the bill pending suggested that the governor call the person directly, that it would be better to get the call personally from the governor, quote, from a pressure point of view, close quote, and the governor agreed. As we sit here now, as far as we know, that bill sits on the governor's desk. That $8 million in funding is still pending. In addition to the pay-to-play allegations, which are described in greater detail in the complaint, we also were surprised to learn of an extortionate attempt against the Chicago Tribune newspaper. The Chicago Tribune had not been kind to Governor Blagojevich, had written editorials that called for his impeachment, and Governor Blagojevich and defendant John Harris, his chief of staff, schemed to send a message to the Chicago Tribune that if the Tribune Company wanted to sell its ball field, Wrigley Field, in order to complete a business venture, the price of doing so was to fire certain editors, including one editor by name. In the governor's words, quote, fire all those bleeping people, get them the bleep out of there, and get us some editorial support, close quote, and the bleeps are not really bleeps. The defendant, Harris, tried to frame the message more subtly to get the point across to the Tribune that firing the editorial board members would be a good thing in terms of getting financing to allow the sale to go forward. But the most cynical behavior in all this, the most appalling, is the fact that Governor Blagojevich tried to sell the appointment to the Senate seat vacated by President-elect Obama. The conduct would make Lincoln roll over in his grave. The governor's own words describing the Senate seat, quote, "It's a bleeping valuable thing, you just don't give it away for nothing," close quote. Another quote, "I've got this thing, and it's bleeping golden. I'm just not giving it up for bleeping nothing. I'm not going to do it. I can always use it. I can parachute in there," quote. Those are his words, not our characterization, other than with regards to bleep. The tapes reveal that the Governor Blagojevich wanted a number of things in exchange for making the appointment to the Senate seat. An appointment as Secretary of Health and Human Services, or an ambassadorship, an appointment to a private foundation, a higher paying job for his wife, or campaign contributions. At one point, he proposed a three-way deal, that a cushy union job would be given to him at a higher rate of pay where he could make money. In exchange, he thought that the union might get benefits from the president-elect, and therefore the president-elect might get the candidate of his choice. I should make clear that the complaint makes no allegations about the president-elect whatsoever, his conduct. This part of the scheme lost steam when the person that the governor thought was the president-elect's choice of senator took herself out of the running. But after the deal never happened, this is the governor's reaction, quote, "They're not willing to give me anything but appreciation. Bleep them," close quote. And again, the bleep is redaction. What I should also talk about is that in another event, somebody else approached the governor, and the governor's understanding of this approach was that in exchange for an appointment to the Senate seat, he would receive campaign contributions. And the government's view of what was told to him through intermediaries was that, quote, "We were approached pay to play. That you know, he raised me 500 grand, and the other guy would raise $1 million if I made him senator," close quote. This is a conversation where the senator is describing how he perceived the message that came through multiple hands. His concern, was he offended that he thought campaign contributions were being offered in exchange for a Senate seat? No. He was worried that the campaign contributions would actually be paid. He wasn't against the corrupt deal. He was against being stiffed in the corrupt deal. His quote was he wanted the money, quote, "tangible up front," close quote. He told someone who was his intermediary, quote, "Some of the stuff's got to start happening now, right now, and we've got to see it," close quote. Just last week, he was saying this to someone to make sure that the money was going to be up front, and he said, quote, "You got to be careful how you express that and assume everybody's listening. The whole world is listening. I would do it in person. I would not do it on the phone," close quote. That's the governor of Illinois. After an article appeared in the Tribune last week indicating a belief that Mr. Blagojevich had been taped, then a message was sent for him to undo contact with the intermediary on that campaign contribution deal. And finally, we should also note that the government talked about appointing himself to the Senate seat for reasons not having to do with the better welfare of the citizens of Illinois. He wanted to do it to avoid impeachment in the Illinois legislature for his conduct. He wanted to do it to have access to greater financial resources if he were indicted. He wanted to do it to see if he could help his wife work as a lobbyist. He wanted to do it to remake his image to run for office in 2016. And he wanted to do it to see if he could generate speaking fees. At the end of the day, the conduct we have before us is appalling. What I do want to note is that at the end of the day, it's very, very important that how we proceed from here be the right way to proceed. We have a lot of information gained from a number of interviews and investigation over the years. We have a tremendous amount of information gained from the wiretap and the bugs that occurred over the last month and a half or so. What we also know is that some of these schemes went pretty far and some did not go far at all. But they had discussions about what they would do, who they would approach, and how they would phrase it. And we need to do the investigation now that the investigation is over to find out from other people what happened, what they were told, how explicitly, what they understood, and what happened. That part of the